Please rise for the procession of the 2020 Cicero Preparatory Academy graduating class. Alex, he's gonna have to switch the input because it died. Please remain standing as the faculty sing Gaudamus Igitur.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, graduates, faculty, today, the 18th day of June, 2020, we are gathered in solemnity and jubilation to recognize these graduates' successful completion of the 4 years course of study prescribed to them by the governors of Cicero Preparatory Academy, Great Hearts Academies, and recognized by the authority of the state of Arizona. We, the assembled faculty of the Academy, have come to present these candidates for graduation, to ask the Board of Directors to confirm and endorse these young men and women as graduates of the Academy, the class of 2020. There is nothing that the school does in which it has greater pride. There is nothing that the school does in which it takes greater joy. Graduates of 2020, you are here tonight because each one of you has worthily completed your studies, down to your last rhetorical debate or lesson on improper integrals, or your last line of Spanish or ancient Greek, and down to the last section of the Brothers Karamazov. There is so much that you have done and learned in your time here. Most importantly, you've begun to live the examined life by seeking to know. During this portion of the program, the headmaster traditionally has to ask around to ascertain a few unique characteristics of the graduating class. Luckily, despite all the unforeseen challenges of the past year, this was not one of the challenges for me, as I have had the very unique honor to teach this class for the last 4 years. Some of you, luckily enough for you, slipped by, and others had the terrible fate of 4 years of humane letters with me. Either way, all of you have been shaped by your time here at Cicero, and especially by your time with one another. You've become something larger than your individual selves, as often happens in healthy, loving communities of people. And though you are all still incredibly unique and talented in your own way, your class has some shared characteristics. I think this is especially the case with this first senior class, as difficulty, challenge, and suffering chisel away at the vague, unformed block of our character and create something much more distinct. Which brings me to my first point. You are a class of resilience. You have undergone so many challenges as we have built this program, and I have undergone many more in this past year alone. But rather than making you weak, it has made you all very resilient. And there's something about that word, resilient. It comes from, of course, the Latin, resilio, and it means literally to leap or spring back. It does not mean some sort of stiff wall that never moves, but rather something much more beautiful. I think of a strong tree that the wind may buffet from all sides, and it bends with the wind, but in its resiliency, it springs back. And in both its bending and its return, it both weathers the storm and remains true to its original form. It is in both its flexibility and its stability that it retains its strength. What a beautiful thing for you men and women to have gained over the last few years, and how well that will serve you throughout your lives. Secondly, you're courageous in the whole sense of that virtue, both bold and enduring. To be on the front lines with no senior class ahead of you and to meet every challenge, what a valiant spirit you must have. To stay here over the years as many of your friends have left, and to push through a difficult commitment when ends are so near at hand. What a courageous act of endurance for all of you. The good life is found on the other side of our difficult commitments, not in the easy gratifications that are so excessively abundant in our society. What a wonderful thing that you've discovered before going away. Lastly, in committing to stay at Cicero, you've committed to one another, helping one another, encouraging one another, fighting with each other, being there for one another in the toughest of times, and of all of these things, loving each other. loving one another well, which can only be done when the choice to love does not come easy. Well done. I am so proud of this senior class of 2020, this class of resilience, courage, and love. To begin our address tonight, the Academy has selected 2 graduates, our salutatorian and our valedictorian, to speak on behalf of the senior class. They are the recipients of the 2 highest honors bestowed upon members of the graduating class. Both of these students are outstanding models of intellectual excellence and noble character. They both earned the highest possible marks of academic excellence throughout their high school careers. Moreover, they have contributed so richly to our Academy over the last 4 years in many of the same, but also quite different ways. I am very pleased to present to you our salutatorian of the class of 2020, Miss Jillian Cash.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to my classmates, our families, and our loved ones who either can't be here with us today due to social distancing or have gone before us. We thank you for your constant nurturing, love, and support in pursuit of our dreams. We are gathered here to celebrate our accomplishments on this wonderful night in June. And based on the series of events, who knew it? While COVID-19 has limited the attendance of this glorious event, it can never minimize the joy we share tonight as Cicero Preparatory's first graduating class of 2020. As Goethe said, nothing is worth more than this day. The graduation committee of the faculty has given me this opportunity to speak to my class as salutatorian. Thank you. I'd like to take a moment and specifically acknowledge some of my fellow classmates. Please stand when I say your name. Sebastian Bauer, Michael Capriola, Michaela Crichton, Kingston Crichton, Jackson Pofall. Oh, and there's one more. Let's see here. Of course, Joya Cash. For that matter, please come up here. So share this moment with me. Look around. What do we have in common? We've known each other since kindergarten. Congrats, Team OLPH, we made it. Let's give ourselves a round of applause. You may all be seated. Now I would like to reflect on some of the special individuals who have helped to shape my experience at Cicero and support my commitment to excellence. Whether it be ardently telling the Epic of Gilgamesh with Mr. Doolittle, invoking the truth through humane letters with Mr. Meadows, sharing the gift of music via choir club with Mrs. Nesvig, studying the ancient languages of Latin and Greek with Mr. Hayes, and or Dr. Derassi's inspirational teaching for science. I thank you all for illuminating that which is good. And I am most grateful to have been mentored by such extraordinary people. What do I know through this experience at Cicero Preparatory? I know classical education is what you make of it. And I know I did my very best. I did my very best under our school's principles and standards. I did my very best to volunteer and to help others here at school since inception and off campus in my community. I did my very best to promote the classical skills Cicero Prep has set for us. I did my very best to exceed them and to pave the way for forthcoming students. Epoesa takalutera mu. What does this mean for all of us? Class of 2020, we are the first graduating class. We are the ones who have the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of those we interact with going forward. Together, we can achieve our goals, whatever they might be. We are a force majeure. All members of the senior class, please stand. Let's give each other a round of applause. We've earned it. You may all be seated. I agree with Elon Musk's assertion that it is possible for ordinary people to do extraordinary things, as seen in the recent SpaceX mission. The physical and mental growth we have all achieved to date is only the beginning of our individual journeys. We are a collection of scholars with strengths only we possess, and for this reason, we are all capable of greatness. When the world opens up, who will we be? Do we know who we love and admire? What can we do individually as we go forth to make a difference? Success is achieved by having true love and passion. If we pursue something, isn't it because we have the zeal and interest in truth, goodness, and beauty that in turn leads us to joy? There's something we need to ponder. Our world has changed unexpectedly and exponentially in the last 3 months. How can we use this experience to fuel our choices and create our own opportunities? I have a favorite quote from my grandfather. Every day, a little more, a little better than the day before. The truth of these words ring clear. I know, Papa and Nana, you are watching over us as Joy and I celebrate this victory. Class of 2020, if we all do our personal best, we collectively can be the greatest generation for the 21st century. We are all going many different ways. For my sister Joy and I, it is the pursuit of medicine. For some, the path might not yet be clear, but by using our experience and education from Cicero as a catalyst, we will all find our place. We start our future now. Congratulations to you all. Come and join me in the commitment to excellence.
Can you all hear me okay? Through the mic? Great. Thank you. Thank you, Jillian, for your thoughtful address and for your consistent embodiment of the ideals of Cicero Preparatory Academy. Next, I am very pleased to present to you the valedictorian of the class of 2020, Miss Johanna Hissler.
Someone took my speech.
Yeah, they actually did. You saw me put it in here, right? Okay, hold on 1 minute. This, Ms. Reichert, do you know where her speech went? It was right up here. No, you saw me. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, speech. I'll have you. Okay. Okay. Sorry. So I'm going to invite Mr. Crow to give his commencement address, and then we will have Ms. Hissler give her valedictory address. To send you forth, the Academy has invited Mr. Brandon Crow to offer today's commencement address. A lifelong native of Arizona, Mr. Crow is the Executive Director of Upper Schools for Great Hearts. Previously, he has served as a headmaster, dean, and humane letters teacher over his last 14 years in the network. A graduate of Arizona State University, Mr. Crow is ABD in the field of American religious history. He served as a founding board member of Cicero Prep. More than all this, though, we've invited Mr. Crow here tonight because of his insight and character. His care for students, friends, colleagues, and family is second to none. He has spent much time at Cicero Prep over the last few years and has helped to guide our school. Mr. Crow knows our community both as a Great Heart School and as an individual academy with its own unique characteristics. He is passionate about the love that we share and interested in our good. It is our honor to have Mr. Crow here to speak to us tonight and to call him a true friend of our academy. Mr. Brandon Crow.
Well, thanks a lot, Mr. Julian, and thank you, Cicero faculty and families, for having me here today. And thanks, too, for being willing to call an audible. Mr. Julian and I like to talk about how in this line of work, now maybe more than ever, you have to be maximally prepared and maximally flexible. So we're getting a little dose of that. But graduates of the class of 2020, it's my honor to be here with you tonight. And really what this night is about, and in case you forgot, I doubt you did, but it's about celebrating you and your accomplishment today, and to really share in the blessing of that celebration. And so I'm not going to say too much about this last quarter, not because it doesn't matter. My goodness, right? I don't know if our country has been through a more strange or frightening ordeal in decades at least. But what matters for you really is what's ahead, right? Whether that's the next 2 or 40 or 80 years, even for some of you, that's what matters, those years of your life. And so those can't be and shouldn't be trapped by the oddness of the last academic quarter. Forward is the thing, not backward. So this will be a thing that you'll remember forever, this time of your life, but hopefully it's with some degree of reflection, but thinking forward. And so what has happened for all of us, right, is that we've all been called back from the ordinary everyday to stop and think. And that's thinking that's worth doing. But we can't stop and think just for a time. That thinking has to continue. It has to move us forward. Because we have to think about something Mr. Julian actually just mentioned. We have to think about examining ourselves. We have to think about living a life that's worthy of what's been given to us. And so that's what I want to talk about a little bit tonight. So graduates, over the last several years, you have been doing something, and I hope you'll forgive me for what might be a kind of clumsy metaphor analogy here, especially after taking off my mask, but we'll get into it. You've been doing something over the last several years, something that is important and vital to your existence, but something that you may not have noticed at all. Every day that you walked the halls of your campus, or studied late into the night, or spent time with another, you were doing this thing of which I speak. In fact, you are doing it right now, right? You are breathing. But this breathing is no ordinary human act, because you breathed something special. You breathed what I'm going to call Cicero air. Cicero air, as I've come to kind of sort it out, includes a cornucopia of different components. But I'd like to limit my focus on 3 vital essentials of this Cicero air. And so I'll do my best to describe them in a minute. But what's important is that as you look back in your time at Cicero, at your breathing, there's a deep irony, because it's something that you're doing all the time. It's an environment in which you lived and were steeped, but you might not even realize it. And I should say I'm borrowing a little bit from, there's a well-known essay by David Foster Wallace called This is Water. I don't know if any of you have read it, but it talks about fish, right? And how fish, their relationship with water is unexamined, right? They don't sit there and think about, hey, check out this water, right? But it's vital to their sustenance and survival. And so, right, the irony is that this thing that you've relied on for all these years that Ms. Cash was telling us about in your time together, your time here at Cicero, is something that's also so often overlooked. And so let me try to explain a little bit more about what I'm talking about. So I think what Mr. Julian mentioned is, while I don't know many of you well or know you very deeply, I'm sort of that nosy neighbor, maybe, where I spend time coming to Cicero, talking to folks, getting to know them, and knowing a lot about the school, not by living in it so much, but talking to those who live in it. And so, as I sit on my perch and kind of check out what's going on from, White Castle or Twisted Grove or somewhere around here, here's what I've come to conclude about you all, about this place, about this air that you breathe. First, one of these components of this air is that you're a trailblazing group, right? And you've probably heard that a lot, and you know that. But you are here, part of the first graduating class of Cicero Prep, because your families were not persuaded that the best was actually out there. They signed you up, and you consented to start at a school that had never even had a high school. They had you wear uniforms and every year enroll in classes that no one on this campus had ever taken before, and probably no one on this campus had ever taught before. But you did it, right? You did it, and you succeeded because of your goodwill, your patience, your tenacity, and that's what it takes, right? You started a sports program and leapt right into 2A when you hadn't ever had any AIA experience before. And so when you think of a trailblazer, it's actually not someone like a Napoleon or a Raskolnikov. Rather, it's someone who forges ahead into the unknown, but willingly under the guidance of their leaders. And you trusted your leaders, you trusted your teachers, and now you are better for it. This is trailblazing par excellence, where you're led to see something that you haven't seen before. So you are not a lone wolf group, but you are the first in the path where all other centurions in the future will trod. So that's the first thing, right? You're a trailblazing group. The second is that you're high-minded, right? And you're breathing this each and every day. And this, of course, is what you know all too well, right? And it's more than the, and I know it's been a while since you've been in the classroom, but it's more than the humane letters, physics, fine arts, foreign language, calculus gauntlet that you ran every day. It's more than that. These topics are meant to stretch you, but they're meant to do more than just test your mettle. They're meant to penetrate your heart. They reach into your soul and they tell you, this is what the world is, and you can know it. You can and will pursue the good, the knowledge of what is real, and you'll be able to share that with others. And so you engage in discussion groups and science fairs and vocal performances, theater, and you love the life of the mind because it blesses and stretches you to see closer, to experience more and to be better. This is the essence of education if done well, to delight in living the examined life. And you have done that so well. And then thirdly, and I apologize, I couldn't think of something more clever, so I just went for some alliteration here. Thoughtfully thirsty is what I came up with. Another way to say this is not settling for anything less than excellent. And I've already alluded to this, right? That your parents weren't interested in settling for just putting you in a school down the road or spending unreal sums of money at a private school, but rather saying, we want what's best, what's actually the best out there, and we want to make that happen. We don't want to settle for the status quo for our children, and that's something that can't be divorced or separated from you, right? You've lived with that decision in a way that serves you forward. And please don't take this lightly, right? Don't take that for granted, that your parents made a commitment to do something that no one else had done, and they were making that commitment for you. And so in doing that, you as a community, you don't just yearn for what others have. You yearn for the best. You don't say, we want volleyball or choir or a hiking club, but you say, we want the best, and then you go and make that happen. And you don't say, hey, it would be great to have some good teachers, right? You work on and get the very best teachers, and you keep them and you bring them to love you because there is so much to love about you. And so please hear me when I say this. This is the air that you have breathed. Some of you for many years have had these elements going in and out of your metaphorical lungs each day. And this has swirled around you, but it's rarely pointed to explicitly, right? Like we said, the fish in the water, you just keep going, you keep living through it. And this perfect mixture, this trailblazing mentality, this high-mindedness, and this thoughtful yearning, when swirled together, has made this environment dynamic, and it's made it healthy. And this has started with your unflinching and courageous headmaster, right, who we already said is maximally prepared and maximally flexible. And then also all those who have cared for you, including your 30-plus adults who are here with you every day, leading and guiding you, your teachers. And none of them probably said, hey, look, this is the air that we're going to share together. But together you have created it and it has sustained you. And ultimately what you've done is made it better for the 400 or so younger centurions who are here each and every day. You've made this place better for them, that they might be better. And so you might be thinking, okay, great. Well, we breathed this Cicero air and it was fun while it lasted, but what now? Right? I thought we were going to talk about the future and you keep talking about the past. Well, in one sense, as Mr. Julian mentioned to you in the hallway, right, you're soon going to stop breathing this Cicero air because you're going to move on from this campus. But each of you will take some of it with you. And so if you will, imagine that you've got, I don't know, some kind of utility belt or something where you keep a couple of these canisters of Cicero air just kind of like on reserve in case you need them, right? They're back there. It's imaginary, right? So you don't think like, oh man, I'm not going to walk to my first day of college with a utility belt. But you have these canisters in reserve because you're going to need this air again. And so I want to reiterate that these characteristics that made your time here at Cicero, the very air you breathed, are definitely not everywhere in the world. In fact, they are exceedingly rare. And this is why it is your job to keep doing your best to breathe this air, despite whatever pollutions you might experience in the adult world. And so whether you're going halfway across the world, or at a school down the road, or to a job in the very near future, what you have breathed at Cicero will not simply or easily transfer elsewhere. It will take work because you have moved away from the nutrient-rich environment of Cicero, and you are going to be bombarded. Some of you will be hit hard with the lie of hedonism that engages you like an animal rather than a rational being. And this hedonism comes to young adults in varied forms, but at root, it denies your dignity as a human being. The unbridled pursuit of pleasure rather than meaning entices us because it supposes that man can live on bread alone. This is precisely the challenge against which your canister of Cicero air will steel you. Think back, for example, to 10th grade and our friend Shukov and how deprived he was of physical sustenance. But he persevered because he knew that the most basic of human needs is the need for meaning. Because you have breathed Cicero air, you can be a bulwark against the bread and circuses that the cave offers as a poor substitute for a full life. Alternatively, some of you will be bombarded by the temptation toward pretension, because it will stoke your ego, right? To know that you not only have you heard of this Plato guy that your professor is going on and on about, but that you have read, discussed, and written on hundreds of pages of his work. And so you might win the acclaim of your professors and you'll want to feel bigger than everyone else. That's the temptation. And so status anxiety will urge you to look down your nose at those whose education was not as robust. But you must not come anywhere near that sentiment, for that is not how you were taught. At those moments, you must again open that reserve of Cicero air in order to breathe it in and recall that humility leads to growth, and that because you have been given much, much is required of you. And so you are to serve by bringing others out of the cave, not sneer at those who are still shackled inside. And then finally, some of you, as you go through life, will be tempted toward despair. You will fail out there, and you won't have the loving and supportive family that's right next to you, or your teachers who have loved you and cared for you so much every day. And it'll be hard. Something will tell you I can't do this, or I'm not good enough. And sometimes there won't be someone around to tell you otherwise. And so you'll find yourself like a Sidney Carton or like a Marmeladov, staring into an abyss and wondering, what's the point? But it's at those moments, and I've had them too, that you'll have to crack out that last bit of Cicero air and take it in. And that's the stuff that will remind you how much the power of love, a deep commitment to the good of another, can generate. You are not only deeply loved, but capable of and called to offer your own unique wisdom and care to others. And this is where we come full circle. Because the good, the summum bonum, is inalienable. It cannot be taken from you under any circumstances. And so if Cicero has taught you anything, it should be this, that you were meant to pursue the good, and no one and nothing can take that away from you. So in all of these situations, when these pollutions try to make their way into your lungs, you'll have to hold and reopen that canister of Cicero air that you have on reserve. And so all these years, even though you didn't know it, you were breathing in the most pure, most life-giving thing out there. So class of 2020, do not forget the place and the people who formed you. But do not just think fondly of Cicero Prep. Rather, let its blessings continue to flow forth in your life. For one last time, breathe in all that this community has to offer, for that is what it is to live well. Congratulations and good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Crow. So one of my many nightmares over the last week came true about 15 minutes ago. So the rest of this thing should go off without a hitch. I gave the speech directly to Johanna this time so that I could not lose it in the last 10 minutes in the chair there. So let me back up. Next, I'm very pleased to present to you the valedictorian of the class of 2020, Miss Johanna Hissler.
So I, unlike most high school graduation speeches, will not be starting my speech with the mention of Merriam-Webster on the definition of a single word. I know, save your disappointment until the end, please. Our class was the first, the trailblazers, the tradition-setting, collective experience-building members of Cicero, or as so lovingly put by our headmaster, the front bumper of a car. I love that one. For 4 years, we had no class ahead of us, no one to inform us how high school should look for us. Although this presented a unique set of challenges felt differently by each of us, it gave us what we have here today. The friendships, the happy moments, the collective effort were all due to our effort. As the original quote of Socrates goes, "I only know that I know nothing." Later revolutionized by one of the most cutting-edge philosophers of our time, Michael Scott, I understand nothing. This speaks to all the challenges we face today. In a world more unstable than ever, in which we cannot rely on how life went, we must build here like we built. We must build out in the world like we built here at Cicero. There is no manual, no expert, no one informed to tell us how to handle something, an opportunity. As we rebuild, let us seek out better instead of normal. We were given an incredible gift, the gift to create what we wanted out of an experience. We grew closer than we would have ever been able to had we not been given this opportunity. And we have stories that will make us smile for many years down the road. And we above all else thank our teachers. For as much as we dedicated time and effort into our work here at Cicero, they were there with us each step of the way. Even though I like to let Mr. Meadows think otherwise, I do love each and every single one of them. Thus, having gotten through the more serious part of my speech, I'd like to share some of my favorite memories that I know my classmates cherish as much as I do. Those include ceaseless dad jokes from Mr. Julian. They were quite brutal. Endless story times from Miss Connor. Mr. Meadows' friendly reminder that the shut-up bell had rung. When the girls pranked the boys into thinking there was a ghost outside of their cabin on the retreat, to which they, of course, acted with complete level-headed maturity. I am joking, of course. They'd rip the door handle off, trying to get out of the room. So as Merriam-Webster put it, love is a warm attachment. So let me end my speech by saying I have a warm attachment to all of you, who made my 4 years something that I can look back on with strong affection of another arising out of kinship or personal ties. It's another beautiful, yeah, you get it. The class of 2020 are tight. Know that these moments did not make us who we are, but made us be ourselves in the best way. I want to say from the bottom of our hearts, we will never forget time and the sacrifice of everyone who helped us make it to this point. So as we stand here for one last time as seniors of Cicero Prep, let us attempt to replace our beloved Michael Scott's "I understand nothing" with the triumphant "I might understand something."
Thank you, Ms. Hissler, for your address and your continual excellent leadership at our academy. Mrs. Connor was not able to be here tonight, but she had prepared a speech to give on behalf of Mr. Pofall. We would now like to welcome Mr. Doolittle up to give Mrs. Connor's introductory speech for Mr. Jackson Pofall. Mr. Doolittle.
Like Mr. Julian said, these are Mrs. Connor's words. Any references to my son should be understood along those lines. I feel deep regret that I cannot stand before you to deliver this speech. But you see, my son, who serves in the National Guard, was exposed to a soldier who tested positive for coronavirus. And then his being home on Sunday means we also have been exposed. As I thought about this most disappointing circumstance, though, I realized my loss actually serves as an illustration for part of what I want to say to you as you accept admission into the United States Military Academy at West Point. But we will come to that later. Jackson, you, along with your classmates, are on a journey to become an adult, a man. I'm sure part of the reason you were accepted into West Point is because you have begun this journey well. You are a hard worker, and your dedication to your work is evident by the success you have experienced both as a student and an athlete. You are able to juggle multiple responsibilities and maintain sanity, even a sense of humor. You enjoy the challenge of competition and work well under stressful conditions. You understand complex ideas and are able to explain them well to colleagues. All these are wonderful and important struggles and important strengths. But something more is required as you continue your journey as a man. That something more includes living a life of honor and service. Regarding living a life of honor, you have an amazing opportunity in this direction to attend West Point, given that their stated mission is to educate, train, and inspire the Corps of Cadets so that each graduate is a commissioned leader of character committed to the values of duty, honor, country, and prepared for a career of professional excellence and service to the nation officer in the United States Army. This is a high calling dependent on commitment and a character of honor. Honor, a virtue which implies loyalty and courage, truthfulness and self-respect, justice and generosity, whose underlying principle is truth. Cicero himself said, "Ability without honor is useless." You have much ability, Jackson. I challenge you to grow even more in honor. Regarding living a life of service, you should know that in the process of serving others, as a parent, a teacher, an officer, a surgeon, etc., you are working at something that is bigger than yourself. And these are the thoughts I had in reflecting on my own son's service in the National Guard, and some consequences that are a natural result of any service. Along the way of service, you will inevitably experience disappointment, hardship, messiness, misunderstanding, inconvenience, harm even. But it is worth it, because living is not just about me. It's not just about you. It's about our love for one another. Your service to others is a step toward becoming an adult, a man. It requires that you think not only of the good of yourself, but the good for others. So now, Jackson, as you move to serve your country, starting at the United States Military Academy at West Point, take what you have received here and grow it deeper. Grow your strength, grow your intellect, grow your virtue. And now, family and friends, please join me in welcoming retired Army Colonel of the Medical Corps, Dr. Puntel, Professor of Pediatrics at the University of Arizona and Director of Echo Lab in the Department of Pediatric Cardiology at the Phoenix Children's Hospital, as he comes to bestow the honor of West Point admission to Jackson Pofall.
That was a great speech. Jackson, come on up. All right. I'm going to get close to this. Need to get close so everybody can hear these words. All right. Attention to orders. United States Military Academy, West Point, Certificate of Appointment. On behalf of the President of the United States of America and the United States Military Academy Admissions Committee, I take great pleasure in presenting the Certificate of Appointment to Jackson Graham Pofall for the class of 2024. Signed, Darrell Williams, Lieutenant General, U.S. Army Superintendent. You can probably go and sit down. Yeah. Oh, you want to get a picture? Sure. All right.
It's for your mother.
Yes, yeah, for your mom.
Hold on a minute. I'm really trying, people. My camera stuff.
Okay, we'll get some more after too. Thought I'd say a few quick words, though. I wanted to tell you that this is really a special occasion, and it's really special for me because I met Steve and Jen 25 years ago when we studied together. Steve and I studied together in Pittsburgh when we were doing cardiology together. So I knew you before you were born. And what happened was I went to the military medical academy called Uniformed Services University in Bethesda, Maryland, joined the Army there, and trained in Washington, D.C. It's on the grounds of National Institutes of Health. Navy Bethesda, Walter Reed, did pediatrics, worked for a bit, and then came to Pittsburgh and worked with Steve for 2 or 3 years. Then went off and did a lot of other Army things, worked a lot, mainly up in the Seattle, Washington area, where I was doing Army payback time. And during that time, I got to go all over the world, worked in Alaska, Hawaii, all over the country, Kuwait, Iraq. Got to go through the swamps of Louisiana, sew up soldiers' lacerations in dark tents at night, hide in bunkers in Iraq while bombs flew over my head, take care of coalition soldiers throughout the world. So I had amazing experience in the Army. And I would see Steve sometimes at some of our cardiology meetings, and he would say, hey, when you're getting out of the Army, come find me and find out where I am. Maybe we can work together. And that in 2010, I retired after 25 years in the Army and came here and have had a great time working again with Steve here in Phoenix and really enjoyed it. So it's been a fantastic place for me. Looking back on my Army career, it has really been an amazing experience. I got to rappel out of helicopters, do all kinds of amazing experiences, take care of people all around the world, and really have an amazing camaraderie through all of that and all of my training in the military. So I'm really excited for you, Jackson, to experience that as well. So this is one of the biggest commitments as Ms. Connor was saying, she really gave a really good speech and summarized everything. That is just fantastic that you're doing this feat. You do have to be at the highest level of academics, physical fitness, mental and emotional well-being. And when you get there, you're at the top of the class now. When you get to West Point, there's going to be a lot of you there. So you're going to start from the bottom, and those the leadership and your upperclassmen are going to make sure you start from the bottom. But that will build your character. You'll be doing a lot of push-ups, a lot of, there won't be any fraternity parties or sleeping until noon or going to football games and then hanging out all night. That won't be happening in your experience, but you will be building character every day. So remember that there will be times when you are sitting there under a tree at night with your night ops, or you've been doing a lot of push-ups and you're pretty sore, and you'll say, did I make the right choice? But remember that the evening will come, the days will be long, but the weeks will go quickly. And it will be worth every minute of your learning throughout that process. I do want to talk about, and it was interesting because Ms. Connor talked about some of those core values. There are 7 Army core values, and this will be your primer because you're going to have to know these back and forth and be quizzed on them a lot. But I think that all of the graduates can really think about these core values and how we live our lives. The first one is loyalty, and bearing truth and allegiance as a matter of believing in and devoting yourself to something or someone, your country, your unit, your fellow soldiers, your family, your friends, and loved ones. Duty, fulfill your obligations every time. Basically, don't be lazy and don't take shortcuts. Respect, this is particularly true right now in our society with everything going on. Treat people as they should be treated. Selfless service, this is larger than one person. In serving your country, you are a committed team member to go further and endure longer, and seeing what you do as a team for a greater purpose. Honor, developing a habit of being honorable, carrying out, acting, and living these highest values every day. And integrity, do what is right, legally and morally, do the right thing all the time. And personal courage, standing up for and acting upon the things you know are right and honorable. Those are the 7 Army core values that all of us should cherish. Jackson, you have all the pieces it takes to succeed on this great endeavor. You will get to see and do things that most of us only read about or see in movies. Congratulations and good luck. We will all be excited to hear about your experiences and stories. Hooah.
Thank you, Mr. Doolittle, Mrs. Connor, Dr. Puntel, and Mr. Pofall. We're so proud of your achievement, and thank you for your future service to our country. We have now come to the central moment of the evening, in which the Academy will grant diplomas to the class of 2020. I ask Mrs. Reichert, our assistant headmaster, to come to the podium and call the roll of the graduates.
Graduates, as your names are called, please come to the stage to receive your diplomas from Headmaster Julian. Mr. Hunt, will you change the input? Okay. Mariah Alfaro. Sebastian Bauer. Michael Capriola. Grace Charm. Stephen Connor. Kingston Crichton. Michaela Crichton. Sienna Dallas. Catherine Dodd. Emma Erickson. Ariadna Flores. Isaiah Ganchop. Johanna Hissler. Jillian Cash. Joya Cash. Mary Kate Lewis. Margaret Lindsay. Fernando Munoz. Miriam Naruz. Jackson Pofall. Kruti Shankar. Kaylin Swartz. Ashna Tiku. And Zachary Van Voorhees. Graduates, please stand. You may now move your tassels from the right to the left. Ladies and gentlemen, please join with me in honoring these graduates of Cicero Preparatory Academy, the class of 2020. Now, led by Mrs. Nesvig, the graduating class of 2020 will stand and sing one last song together as their farewell to Cicero Preparatory Academy.
If you're hungry for His word, to God's house will be listening. And the wind will set me racing as my journey is a sad. I'll be retracing when I go again. Running out to the pasture, shipping out to misty morning, when the moon has gone to bed, when the sparrows softly singing, I'll be homeward bound again.
Congratulations, class of 2020. Good night, and for one final time, farewell.